I believe I understand that Alcarràs is part of a trilogy of films. How does it connect to Summer 1993, your first feature? How is it a bridge to your next film? Is there a connection?
A little bit, yes.
so?
Well, this is the story. It's not the story of my family because the plot didn't happen to my family.
Right.
But my uncles cultivate peaches in Alcarràs,
Yeah.
and it's the life of my family, and it's the life of my adoptive mom's family. No, so it's like summer 1993 told the story of my biological mom's family and my childhood, and this one is my adoptive mom's family, and it's a place that I really had this huge desire to film at some point because I feel it's very special. We call it like the Catalan Far West because of the landscape and the people there.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear more about that. A little bit more about that Far West and how it influenced how the people there, how the landscape influenced how you thought about making the film, or what inspired you about it way back, when you first had the idea.
Yeah, well, the thing is, because I grew up in this village that it's portrayed in summer 1993, and it's a place that it has a lot of mountains, and the nature there is wild, no? And here, the nature is very strange somehow because it's built by men, so you have all these trees that are planted. It's still nature, but it's a controlled nature, and it's very flat. So for me, it's very amazing always that I go there, that I see the sky in this way, that it's very special. Well, we wanted to shoot a lot of more sunsets and sunrises, but we work with non-actors, so and the time managing of this time of the day is complicated, but it's a very, very special sky. And yeah, and I always felt like I have to shoot something here because nobody goes there in this part of Catalonia. It's not a touristic place. It's just a place where they work the land, and yeah, and it's flat and there is nothing else.
So when did you have the initial idea of tackling this story? And you said that it was, it's about an aspect of your family, but it's not, an exact
Yeah, exactly.
story of your family.
What happened is that when I was writing my first film, my grandfather died. And it was the first time I thought, well, we take for granted all this space that we share as a family, no? And all these trees. And with his death, I thought, what would happen if one day these trees disappear, no? And we lost this space. Because this happens sometimes when someone dies, no? And then I realized that my uncles are very persistent, so they keep cultivating the land. But many families are actually having to abandon the land because the thing is that this way of doing agriculture in small family groups, that it's like the oldest job in the world. We do this since like prehistorical times, no? It's not longer sustainable as it used to be, no? So the fruit used to give a lot of money in this area, but now it's changing. It's not that, agriculture is not going to end. We need it, but the model is changing, no? So they have big companies who get the land and explore it, and they put people to work. So this way of taking care of the land in families, it's kind of disappearing, and for me it's really sad because it's not only a way of taking care of the land that for me makes sense, because you have to like give it to your son or to your daughter and to your children and grandchildren, so you really take care of the land in a respectful way, but it's also the ending of a way of living with many generations in the same house that for me it's very special, and you don't see that as often as before. No?
Well, so with that in mind, I wonder how you thought about the notion of creating a fictional story, but also documenting. There's an aspect of documentary, of nonfiction. It strikes me to what you're capturing, what you're depicting, but you're also adding clearly a fictional story. But how are you thinking about that dichotomy?
Yeah, for me it's like because the script is really written, so we almost follow the script more or less. There are some things that the actors, I give them some freedom, no, to talk the way they talk, but it's quite written, and and the thing is that I like the films that when you watch them, you feel that everything is happening by chance in front of the camera, but behind this chance, there is a lot of work, no?
I think about documentary in the sense of just documenting a place, documenting
Okay, like a
the
portrait.
yeah,
Or, yeah.
documenting the well, you talked about a way of life. You talked about the agriculture and the harvesting. So there's aspects of that you have to, I guess,
Yeah.
you might understand, your family can understand, but someone who's watching it maybe wouldn't have that
Yes,
insight.
Yeah, for me it comes with the idea of portrait, no? Because we wanted to have a portrait of this place.
Yes.
And this is curious because it means that as a filmmaker, sometimes you take decisions not because you like them in your like aesthetic taste or whatever, no? Just because they make sense in this world, no? And I'm talking, for example, about the music, no? Like when I was putting this techno, I was like, I never thought I would do that, no? But Roger would listen to this techno because the boys or the teenager of his age in this area listen to this techno, no? So for me, it was very important to try to portray the people the way they are in this place, even if sometimes I don't agree with it, no? And there is a thing about gender as well, no? Like how the men are in this place, how the women maybe are not as empowered as I would like yet, no? So there were things that, as writers with Arnaud, who was the co-writer, made us think, do we want this for the film or not? And at the end was like, it's not about what we want, it's about this place, no? So we have to try to find, and we spent a lot of time there. We moved to, so my uncles have this farmhouse that they don't live there, but it's in the middle of the peach plantation. So we spent 2 summers there, living and writing and going to the harvest every day and talking to them and talking to other farmers. So it was a way to kind of, for me, it was important to tell the story from the inside of the family and these people, no?
And how did your ideas of what you wanted to portray, the story you wanted to explore, how did that shift or evolve as you spent more time there? You talked about the music, for example, making choices that you might not have expected. In the story and the characterizations, how did that evolve for you?
For me, the big change from the beginning of the project to the end, after talking a lot to the people, was the ending. Because as my family still cultivate peaches, I wanted a happy ending. It's like, okay, these people are really resistant, and they if they want, they can keep doing that. And then talking to other farmers, I realized that they are really pessimistic, and they are like, usually, young people are not taking over, and it's not because they don't want. It's just because it doesn't pay enough, no? And so they are leaving to the cities, and then, we realized that basically, if it was a bit naive to have a happy ending and to make people believe that these people would still do the same, and it was actually in a demonstration that I realized. We were in a demonstration of like the one in the film, and we were looking for Kimets. So the Kimet, the character, we were looking for actors, and they were very happy because we are many of us this time, and it was like 1,000 people, and so it was not that many people. So I realized that this is really ending, no? So the end couldn't be happy.
So with that in mind, how has the film been viewed specifically in this region, either by your family or by folks who either work in agriculture or live in this area?
It was okay. I was so nervous the day we premiered the film there because they asked me a lot of times when we were casting, and we spent a lot of time casting. It's like, why do you want to make this film? Are you coming here to like laugh at us, or because they are, it's a place that it's really underrepresented. Like, nobody goes there to tell their story. So they were suspicious all the time about us making a film about that. So I was really nervous, and when we premiered it, it was okay. They felt like, it is like that, no? And it was funny because, there's this scene with the marijuana, no? The first time that we see it. like people sometimes laugh when they see the marijuana plant, but they laugh when they see the cornfield because they already know what's gonna happen. No, so it was like they kind of they were like laughing before things happening because they recognize themselves. No.
So you mentioned the casting, and I want to dig into that for a minute and have you share with us a little bit about your casting process and sort of not just how you found the actors that you found, but also what you sort of were thinking going in to the process and maybe how that evolved. And you use a similar process in your previous film as well. So what did you bring from that to this as well?
In working with the actors or in the casting?
First in the casting process, and then in the working with the actors.
Yeah, because for me, it was important for this film that we had people who felt like a real attachment to the land. So for that, we had to find people from this area. And the thing is that they speak a very specific Catalan dialect that I really wanted to portray. This is just us who will know, no? But for me, it was important that they speak in like the way they speak in this area. So there are not many actors from there. So what we did, it was long casting. So we spent like more than a year because it's an ensemble piece, so we had to look for a lot of people.
A year casting all the
Yes. Well, we first, over the summer, we went to all the village festivities and, the cooperatives where they bring the fruit, in the street, in the schools, high schools, like places, because likely we started this casting before COVID. So we could go to places and watch and say, okay, so we are going to invite this and this and this. And because they had never had this experience before, a lot of people came. Men were like more difficult to convince because they were like, I'm a farmer, I have a harvest to do in summer, so don't talk to me about the film, no? So that's why this was the hardest character to find. But yeah, we basically saw about 9,000 people. So
9,000.
Yeah. Not me. I mean the
your
casting crew.
It's going to take a team to do that.
Yes. It was a big
9,000 people over the course of a year to find.
Yeah, to find these ones. Yeah, and in different ways, no? Because you could find children at the schools, So it was. But for me, what was important for the casting is that we found people who were a little bit like the characters that we had written, no? So in terms of personality. And because then you have halfway of the job done, no? So for example, for the little girl, for me it was important who was a little girl who was a little bit bossy, no? And a leader in the game, no? And for Kimet it was important that he was stubborn, but tender. So there were some things that I had very clear in my mind. Okay, it has to be like that. And that's why we saw many people, no? Because it was also about who they are and how they are. So I asked them a lot of questions about their personality and their family structure. Like, for example, Kimet has a teenager boy. So this relationship was going to work, no, with Roger. Or Mariona, the teenager girl, has a really nice relationship with her grandfather. So this relationship always was going to work too, no? Yeah. So yeah.
And so was the script constantly evolving as you were in the process? First of all, did you have the script written before you went into this year of casting?
Yes.
Or did it evolve in that year as you met different?
I never stopped writing, so yes, something changed.
Editing?
A little bit, but it was mainly written, yeah. So yeah. And some things changed during the rehearsing process because. So the thing is that once we had all these people,
so tell us about that.
Once we had all these people, I wish that some of them were family, but I realized that the acting and genetics don't not always work. So they were all of them from one different village and different families. So they had to look like a family. So I rented a house in the area. And they came every day, every afternoon or weekend, not all together, but just in relationships that made sense for the film, no? Like Marion and her grandfather, or the little kids, or the couple, or the siblings, or things like that, no? And we build the relationships through improvisations and through moments that could have happened before the story in the film, no? So like, for example, we worked a lot on the fact that they were gonna lose the land and they had to go to the court, and there was this owner who was a friend of the grandfather who was about to die, and then in our games he died and the grandfather was sad, so we work in a way that we created like a shared memory for all the actors as a family. And then we, at the end of this process, which was like 3 months of work, we had like this big like meal all together, like the one in the film. And then I realized that, okay, now they look like a family, in the way that they relate to each other. And then we read the script just once and only time. Yes, and then we rehearsed the scenes of the film just over a month, just for them to know what we were gonna do, but without learning anything by heart, So they knew when they had to speak and what they had to say, but it was always a little bit. There was room for them to bring something,
I love this image of folks coming from another village to go to this rehearsal process for 3 months to create this alternative family, and to create these alternative new memories that you're talking about, so that they can have this relationship on screen.
No, and what happened is that now they still like treat themselves as a family. So when they meet, they call each other like mom and dad, which is very odd. But it stayed with them, and then in Christmas that we have to meet and do
a whole new family to deal with at the holidays.
Yeah, actually, I just had the baby, and I
Yes.
told all my family, and then I was like, okay, I have to tell my like third family,
The Alcarràs family. It's beautiful that you're able to share this context with us. I'd love to let our audience ask maybe like 2 questions before we have to go. So maybe we can take 2 questions from the audience. I can see someone right here.
Thank you for this beautiful film. I have noticed both here and Summer 1993, you have such a wonderful way of working with and capturing children, especially. You just capture their exuberance and then the beautiful inventive games that they make up. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your philosophy in approaching children in this manner.
Yeah. Well, I love working with children because as I look for these kind of spontaneous things that can happen on this, like I like to control a lot, So when you put children, you cannot control. So I have this kind of contradiction, because I like that things happen by chance in front of the camera, but then I like to control. So when you put children, magic happens, So that's why I always love to have them in my films, And at the same time, for me, I always think that probably because I had like complicated childhood, I'm very sensitive to the way of that the children see the world, And for me, what's very interesting in terms of storytelling is that they have a very mysterious look at the world because they don't understand the whole picture. Never, they don't understand everything. So for me, it's very interesting when you can like portray things through their eyes, because people as audience have to kind of put things together too, So yeah, and yeah, I work with children all my life. So as a like summer school places and things like that. So then when I started making films, I decided to put them in the films as well. And yeah, and I think sometimes they even make, because a lot of people tell me that it's very difficult to direct kids, but for me sometimes it's easier, and it's useful also for adults, because adults tend to think a lot of what they are doing in front of the camera, and when they have a kid close, they have to kind of share their attention to them, And this, for me, sometimes makes the acting better too.
Let's take a question from the back. I think, do we have a microphone back there? I can't tell. Yes, we do. So you want to just go ahead and choose someone from back there? That'd be great. I can't see very well in the dark. I think we have the microphone going to the center of the aisle. So
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you for your beautiful film, Carla. It was a pleasure. Wanted to just quickly ask you about the laborers, the African laborers, who they were, how you cast them, the role they played in the development of the script, or not so much the script, which was already written, but how they contributed to the film.
Yes. Well, the casting was amazing because we heard like incredible stories out of them, like when we cast them and when we find them. So it was a very interesting part of the process of making the film. The thing is that, you know, they have a film by the, like, we could have made a film about them, no? Because as I said, like, it is part of these villages. It's like a really important part of the work they do. But it was another film, you know, like, and when I tried, for me it was important that they had the presence in the film, but the more that we started writing about them, the more that important they became, and then we decided to center the story about the family, no? And just for me, there is something that I observed there that I still don't understand quite well, is that the fact that they need each other, no, with the people who own the land and who are from the area. They need each other. They work every day together, like during the whole summer, but they don't know anything about each other. It's amazing, no? So this lack of communication for me was important to show, and we just gave like a little bit of a way to talk about that was through the girl, no? Because she is curious about them, because kids are curious about everything, no? So we had like even a more developed thread that then at the end with the editing it got shorter about the relationship between Boo Boo and Iris, no? And the little girl. So yeah, it was just a way to kind of tell that they are there, that there is this thing about non-communication with the family, but if we entered their stories, it was another film. Maybe we'll make it someday.
Well, last question. Speaking of other films, I said at the beginning that you've talked about how Alcarràs is a second part of, you know, your first film was looking very closely and personally at your life, and then and this is extending your family. But where does chapter 3, not chapter 3, but where does part 3 take you?
Chapter 3, we still haven't like told so much about that, but it tells about well, it's a story to reflect about family memory, because this is something that I don't have, no? Because my parents died when I was a kid, so I always feel very frustrated when I cannot access to them, no, to what happened to them. So it's a story that reflects about what happened when you don't have this family memory, and when you have to go and look for it, and what happened if you don't find it, you know. So yeah, the protagonist is going to be a teenager who more or less will be kind of me at the point that I needed to have some answers, no.
Well, we wish you well with that film, but for now we thank you and congratulate you on the one you shared tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.